Hello, and welcome to Adapt or Perish, episode 25, A Wrinkle in Time. As always, before we get to that, let's talk about our next episode. On Tuesday, September 25th, we're taking a little trip down south to enjoy some good old-fashioned storytelling and comfort food and talk about nice old-fashioned things like gender roles and bigotry and sexual orientation and race relations in a pre-civil rights America, and also Kathy Bates. You know, late stuff. We read Fannie Flagg's Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe and watched the 1991 movie starring Bates, Jessica Tandy, and both of the Marys, Stuart Masterson and Louise Parker. We had a lot to say about this one. Also coming up is something we've been looking forward to for a long time now. In October, we'll be celebrating the first anniversary of Adapt or Perish with our one-year spectacular. We've got a lot of fun stuff planned for the episode that we can't wait for you to hear. And for those of you who listen to these episodes as soon as they drop, we'll be recording the episode this Sunday, September 16th. And if you have any questions or comments you'd like us to read, send them in by this Saturday the 15th to adaptorperishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. On to your West Wing update. It's definitely a bit harder to get through now, and we've been a bit busy, so I haven't watched as much as I've been, and I don't have much of an update. Sorry. I plan to keep going, though, and I'm sure nothing bad happens to any of the characters ever again after this. And with that, on with the show. Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. Welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. My name is Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. And we are coming to you today from a room that is miraculously not 100 degrees.
Yeah, we're recording this. Did everybody remember that heat wave a couple of months back? Especially if you were in the northeast of the United States?
Beginning of July, end of June, we had a real bad heat wave. And we live on the third floor. And we have air conditioning, but we can't really have the air conditioning on while we're podcasting because it's very loud. And we were a little concerned that we would literally die trying to record this episode. But we woke up this morning and it was like 72 degrees.
It's amazing.
So here we are.
If every day could be like this forever, please, I would appreciate it.
Yes.
It would be great. And that's why we're recording the show right now.
Yes, because we were worried it would get hot again.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only... So we are sacrificing our nice day, the beautiful day that we can see through the window. We are not outside. We are here because we can be.
And we care.
Yeah, we do.
We care about you.
And we care about this episode, actually. We had a very interesting time.
Yeah, I care about this episode way more than I expected to.
Yeah.
I'll just get it out of the way.
Okay.
So we're talking about A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes.
Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes.
Originally published in 1962 and then made into two different movies, one in 2003 and one this very year, 2018.
Yes.
Year of our Lord, 2018. Okay. I have no relationship with this property.
Correct.
I had never read it, seen anything about it, didn't know what it was about until literally like this past month.
Yeah.
What about you?
I had read A Wrinkle in Time as a child. I would not say it was ever one of my favorites because there was a lot of math.
You told me that and then I read it. There's not that much math in it.
There's a lot of math and there's some Christianity.
There's no actual math in it. There's just like talk about math.
There's math and Christianity, which are not like two things that I feel are my strongest subjects. So it was just like not a fave. I had read A Wrinkle in Time. I had never read any of the sequels. Don't really know what happens. I understand it gets weird. I don't know much about it.
Oh, it gets weird?
Yeah.
It kind of starts weird.
It gets weirder.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this I was given to understand that. Like, I'll tell you one thing. I thought this story had a Pegasus in it.
It does have a Pegasus.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, it's on the cover.
Yeah, that's why I thought that. We're going to get into that stuff.
Yeah.
But I kind of didn't know what to expect with it.
Yeah.
I was going to say pleasantly surprised. I wasn't pleasantly surprised. I was just kind of surprised at what the story actually was because nothing that I'd ever heard about it kind of prepared me for what the story is actually about.
Yeah. I would say that's true. And like, spoiler alert, I feel like the only thing that you knew about the 2018 movie was like you had heard it had gotten bad reviews.
Yeah.
So at one point you came to me and you said, I don't think we can do this because we're not going to, this was before you had read the book. I want to be clear.
Yeah.
But you came to me and you said, oh, I don't think we can do this because we never do something where we don't like anything. And I said, I think we're going to like it. And you said, no, because it's gotten these terrible reviews. And I said,
Well, I didn't. I want to jump in to defend myself for a second. I didn't say, no, we're not going to enjoy it. I said, no, I'm worried that we won't enjoy it because it hasn't gotten good reviews.
And I said, everyone that I know who has seen it has loved it. And I know it got brigaded in reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because of reasons, which we'll get into.
Yeah, I think I was kind of afraid to record this episode because of how we're going to deal with the property and the movies kind of outside of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is one where some people are going to hear this and really disagree with our opinions on this. Because people seem to be very divided about this new version of it, this 2018 version.
Yeah, but I feel like we have a pretty good track record of backing up our opinions with evidence, which doesn't mean you always have to agree with us, but we have definitely gotten feedback from multiple people like, I don't always agree with you, but I can't argue with your conclusions.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
So I would just say, if we've kind of spoiled how we feel about the 2018 movie and you didn't prefer it, like, I would just encourage you to bear with us.
Yeah. So this is our plan for this episode. For those of you that listened to our Charlie and the Chocolate Factory episode, we really kind of pitted two movies against each other.
Cage match style.
Yeah, it was like 1971 versus 2005.
Head to head.
And the reason we did it that way is because we thought there was stuff to like in both versions.
And there was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we eventually came down on the side of 1971.
Yeah,
for
we definitely did.
A number of reasons, but there were absolutely things in the newer one that we thought were better.
Yeah.
So we're talking about two different versions, two different adaptations of A Wrinkle in Time. One, the 2003 TV movie, and then two, the 2018 theatrical movie. I asked you yesterday, I said, I have an honest question for you. If we're gonna do this show and we're gonna try to figure out how to talk about it, is there anything that you think was done better in the 2003 version than in the 2018 version?
And my answer was no.
So that's kind of what informs today's episode.
Yeah. I feel like we've now just totally just laid the board clear of how we felt about these adaptations. I feel like usually we hold our hand back a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to just get it out of the way?
Yeah. Okay.
How did we feel about the 2003 version?
It was extraordinarily bad. And we're going to talk about why. Like, don't worry. We're not just passing like blanket judgment like we were just saying you shouldn't do. We're going to get into why, but think about all of the sort of made for TV movies of your past that you can imagine that were maybe based on books and all of the reasons why maybe those weren't great. And I can guarantee you they're all in this one. All of those reasons. Now, let me ask you this. How did we feel about the 2018 version of A Wrinkle in Time?
Well, considering that I at least went into it kind of thinking, I hope we like this. We loved it.
Yeah. We both cried.
I cried so much.
So much. Oh my God, you guys, I can't even describe what the experience of watching this movie with Jeremy was like. Because it was a lot of, I was watching a movie. I heard over my shoulder, muffled sniffling. I turned to look. There's tears rolling down his face, and I would say, "Are you okay?" And he would say, "I don't know why I'm crying."
This movie hit me in a way that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
I was not ready for what this movie did to me.
Yeah.
I loved it. I do not think it's above criticism. There are some things in it that I think are not very good. That being said, I loved it.
Yes.
I thought it was wonderful.
You cried a lot.
I just loved it so much.
You cried so much.
It's so much so that I kind of prepared by kind of reassessing what the critical reaction to this movie was and kind of the internet reaction.
It made him angry.
I got so mad. I don't understand how... It's not that I disagree with so many people. I feel like so many people weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
I think I've told you this story before, but I don't think I've ever said it on the show. When I was in film school,
I was in film school.
Did I ever tell you about the phrase that you can say specifically to any film major, but really you could say it to almost anyone that will make them angrier than anything?
It's not color corrected yet?
No, that's just what everybody... No, that's anytime anyone would show anybody anything, the last thing out of their mouth before they hit play was, and just remember, it's not color corrected yet. No, that's not it. I was having a conversation in my undergrad with this guy, and Matrix Reloaded just came out. The second one just came out. And I was saying that I thought it wasn't very good, which was not an unpopular opinion. And this guy said to me, Well, just because you didn't get it doesn't mean it's bad. I've never been angrier in my entire life. And I really had to reflect on it later and realize that, you know what? Maybe the reason I'm so angry is because there is a hint of truth to it. But I have since said that to people to anger them, and it works very well.
Yeah.
It's really good. And that's kind of how I feel about this.
Yes.
Where there's just all of these people, and I feel bad that the thing I keep coming back to is I just think they didn't get it.
I actually think that is a generous opinion. I think a lot of these people are racist.
Well, okay, so like there's not everyone who didn't like this movie is racist.
I'm not saying that.
There's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
There's absolutely a Venn diagram, and one of the circles does involve racists.
Yeah.
But then there's a whole other circle that is people who are not racist.
Let's hope it's a small circle.
That's what I'm hoping.
I hope so. It's probably not.
There's racists and there's people who didn't like. I'm making circles with my hands.
Yeah.
There's racists and there's another circle that's people who didn't like A Wrinkle in Time, and they cross over a little bit. And it's racists who didn't like A Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah, but I think there's a third circle, which is people who genuinely didn't understand it. And so where that intersects with racists is not great.
Yeah. I think the thing I want to say is that I don't think there are people who didn't get it. I think it's about whether people responded to it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think Ava DuVernay was putting something down, and I think a lot of people either were incapable of or not in a mood to pick up what she was putting down.
Yeah.
I was kind of built to pick up what she was putting down. I want to sit down with Miss DuVernay and let her know how much I was built to pick up what she was putting down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that your mind and your heart were open to what she was putting down.
Very much so.
I think you, when it comes to movies, or really the way that you engage with the world, there is a layer of cynicism that a lot of people have that coats them like a wax that I think you didn't develop.
I'm not a fan of cynicism.
Yeah, you're just a really sweet, straightforward person. So like if somebody makes a movie with a total lack of cynicism, I think somebody who's very cynical is trying to find cynicism where none exists.
Yeah, they're trying to say like, okay, well, what's
does
your
it
game?
mean?
What's
Yeah.
your game?
And you're like, no, this is just really nice.
Yeah. There's an article I was just reading about kind of the rise of what the author dubbed nice core.
Yeah.
Which is about, like, Paddington 2 just came out, and apparently it was very good. I want to see it. But apparently it's defined by just how nice everyone is. And the author was making the case that I'm going to link to it in the show notes, but it was making the case that it's kind of like a reaction to kind of Trump's America and the era that we live in right now. And we were talking about how two of our favorite shows of all time are Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which are kind of defined by how nice all the characters are to each other.
Right.
And it's not nice with an ulterior motive. It's just a story about people who are very nice and very sincere.
Yes. Like trying to do good.
Yeah. And I think the new Wrinkle in Time is something that kind of wears its sincerity on it's not that it wears its sincerity on its sleeve.
Well, it does a little bit.
All of the clothing that it wears is sincerity.
Yes.
It's not just on its sleeve.
No, it's very good.
It's everywhere.
So let's get into it.
So we're going to talk about a couple different things right now. Let's just talk about the book for a few minutes.
Right. Yes, I think we should do that.
But then we're going to talk about these movies, and we're not going to pit them against each other kind of bit by bit. We're going to go through them point by point. What we're doing more than that, we're basically saying, here's one way to make an unsuccessful adaptation, and here's one way to make a successful adaptation.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like, I just want to just as a caveat, like, I understand it is a little bit unfair to pit an early 2000s like Canadian TV movie that clearly had no budget against like a major motion picture in 2018. But it's not that unfair.
I mean, a script doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, exactly. Like understanding the source material costs nothing.
Right. That's free. You just need to find people that can do it.
Yeah.
They cost roughly the same amount of money, or can cost roughly the same amount of money. So shall we get into it?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's talk about this book.
I would like to read the back of the book.
So wait, you're saying that 15 minutes in we should tell people what this is about?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time. It was a dark and stormy night. Out of this wild night, a strange visitor comes to the Murray house and beckons Meg, her brother Charles Wallace, and their friend Calvin O'Keefe on a most dangerous and extraordinary adventure, one that will threaten their lives and our universe.
So I'm gonna jump in, and I just want to give a kind of a further summary because that didn't give us a lot.
It was quite short.
Here are the beats of the story. Meg lives with her 3 brothers, 2 twins, and her younger brother, Charles Wallace.
Yes.
They live with their mom. The reason the dad's not in the picture is because at some point in the recent past, he disappeared.
Right.
We do not know where.
Everyone in her life who is not in her immediate family is trying to convince her that her dad has left them.
Yeah.
And her mom is saying, no, he's coming back.
Right. Her mom and dad are both scientists, so science has something to do with it.
Yes. They are the Doctors Murray.
Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, her youngest brother, Charles Wallace, who's very special, he develops a relationship with 3 women that we meet very early on in the book.
Yes.
Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which. Turns out they are actually not ladies. They are celestial star beings from millions of miles away.
And they're millions of years old.
Yes. Billions of years old, I believe.
The youngest one is like 2 million years old.
They essentially open Meg and Charles Wallace's eyes to what's going on in the universe. There is this malevolent force that has already taken over multiple planets, and it's coming for Earth. They believe that Meg's father,
Dr. Murray,
figured out how to travel, how to do interstellar travel.
With his mind.
And he is now captured by this malevolent force.
Yes.
And so they task her and her younger brother and their new friend Calvin,
who just
showed up. Whatever. They have tasked these 3 children with traveling across the universe
to save the world.
To save her dad and
the world.
Then the world.
The world. The universe and the world.
That's the story.
That's pretty accurate.
Right. And things happen. They find him and they find a world that's been taken over by this malevolent force and it's all creepy and everything like that. But eventually everybody wins because Meg understands the power of love.
Yeah.
So, that being said,
yes.
What was your reaction to this book? We already talked about kind of what it was for us as kids. For me, it was nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
I mean, I feel like I had the same reaction that I had, which is I got to a certain point where they were trying to describe what a tesseract is. And I came to you and I said, this right here is why I never got into this book, because there's this long description of this sort of weird mathematical scientific phenomenon. And at the end of it, Meg goes, yes, I think I understand. And I'm going, I don't understand.
Well, it's not really. That's what I was expecting, some kind of weird algorithm. But then when we're actually reading it, they just say, well, you know how a line is 2 dimensions? And then
you kind of
like
fold
a line is 1 dimension.
Yeah.
And then a box is 2 dimensions. And then a cube is 3 dimensions.
And then they get to 3, and then my understanding is complete. And then they go to 4.
Well, 4 is time.
And then nope. See, that's where you lose me.
All right. Well, anyway, that's the book.
It's a bug. There's a line and a bug, and if you fold the line, it's easier for the bug to get from one end of the line to the other, so he doesn't have to walk across, and that's what a tesseract is.
Right.
It's a fold in space.
One would call it a wrinkle in time. So what do you think works about this book?
I feel like what this book does is it takes a nice story about a really nice family, and it layers all of this other stuff on top of it, but at its core, it's a story about a family. It's not a story about science.
Okay.
Right? It's a science fiction story for children, but it's based on something very relatable, which is your family. Like, as a child, like, that's something you understand. Like, your parents love you, and you love your parents, and you love your brothers and sisters. And so I think the reason that it is really relatable and successful, or one of the reasons, is that it has that core at the heart of it, and that's the important thing. The important thing is really not all of the crazy stuff that happens. The important thing is really the family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that struck me was that kind of the mechanics of the story didn't seem as well thought out as I expected them to be.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well, and that as a piece of science fiction, this is the part of me where I do get a little pedantic. If I'm going to read science fiction, part of good science fiction for me is that the rules of the world and motivations are clearly defined. And in this one, I felt like it was a little slapdash.
Let me ask you
not enough
this.
so that it makes it a bad book, but it wasn't there for me.
But let me ask you this, though. Would you feel more comfortable, because I don't actually know technically if this would be fantasy or science fiction. Would you feel more comfortable if it was called fantasy?
No, I would still, no.
Yeah.
So basically, I would feel the same way, because I think either in fantasy or science fiction, the rules need to be there. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Having read the book and watched these movies, it is not clear to me why the 3 misses, the Mrs. W's, why they chose 3 children to go after the father.
I mean, I think we get an explanation, which is, well, Charles Wallace is special.
Right. We know why Charles Wallace is there, but we don't understand why the mom's not going with them.
Yeah.
Why is the adult not going?
Yeah.
And I think the reason is it's a kid's book.
Yes.
So
Because it has to be about kids.
Right. And but I think that's the only thing that I got from it in terms of Lengel's thought process behind it. I didn't really get a clear reason for why the 3 children were tasked with this and not any grown-ups, including the love of this man's life.
Right.
Right. I kind of don't understand why the mother's not there.
Well, because I feel like in a traditional, I don't know, maybe slightly more traditional book, the reason would be that the kids' minds and hearts were open to it, but the adults didn't understand. Like, think of Narnia.
Yeah.
Right? But it's made very clear that the mom's mind is completely open to it.
Oh, yeah.
And she's trying to figure it out. And she's the one that knows all of the science behind it because it was something that they were working on together as scientists. And I almost wonder, like, for that reason, she couldn't go. Like, it would almost be too dangerous for her to go because she would be trying to approach it scientifically and be trapped just like the father was. That's me just making that up in the spur of the moment. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's not in the book whatsoever.
We could come up with anything, but it's not in the book.
No, it's not in the book.
Yeah. And there's another, and that kind of leads me to my second big problem, which is Calvin.
Yeah.
We talked about Calvin a few minutes ago. I don't feel like in any version that we watched, Calvin has a 100% believable reason to be there.
Right, because in the book, again, we're told Calvin is special. Calvin can kind of communicate psychically like Charles Wallace can.
But Charles Wallace can.
And Charles Wallace definitely can. And I will say, like, we have not read any of the sequels. And so I think that there's more about Calvin in the sequels that we don't know. But of course, like, a book should stand on its own. I'm just saying, like, if anybody's out there who's read all of these books going, but yeah, there's all these reasons. Like, we haven't read any of the sequels, so we don't know.
Yeah. I think the thing that makes, I don't think it's bad. I think the thing that does make Calvin succeed is his kind of unfailing earnestness.
Right. And that's, like, they talk about that too. Like, that's why he's brought along, because neither of the other two have any, like, sort of...
They don't have people skills.
People skills, yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably the closest thing to a compelling reason that I think is in the book.
Yeah.
But I never felt it was 100% compelling.
So, unusually for me, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
There are a multitude of female characters in this book.
Yes.
Do you think that the female character was underwritten? This is not a trick question.
I know. I'm pausing to think about it. No, I do not think the female character is underwritten.
I agree with you.
But I want to explain why I paused.
Okay.
I paused because Meg, throughout the book, keeps doing this thing that bothers... She keeps negging herself.
Yeah.
And also other characters are kind of negative on her, too.
Yeah, they were really harsh on her. In the book, more so than either of the movies. Like, her brothers and sisters will say to her... Or she doesn't have any sisters. Her brothers, like, will say to her, like, oh, yeah, like Meg, who's dumb, as we know.
Yeah. So I think that's the reason I paused, but that doesn't necessarily mean the female character is underwritten.
No, I don't think the female character is underwritten. I mean, it certainly passes the Bechdel test in every way, shape, and form.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I certainly, in good conscience, couldn't say that a book that had this many prominent female roles, I could not say the female character is underwritten in this.
No.
And then kind of by definition, the female character is not underwritten in either of the movies.
No, I mean, so much so that one character, and we'll come to it, but one character who is explicitly female in the book is not female in either of the movies.
And yet I still don't feel that the female character is underwritten.
Right, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
It's like there were so many women that they had to put in more male actors, I guess.
Well, yeah, of
I
course
mean,
you do.
Like you do.
Of course.
Yeah, because, like, just like Star Wars, like, it had so many women in it.
So I just want to stop you right there. So basically, we've already directly addressed the multitudes of people online who didn't like A Wrinkle in Time for questionable reasons, and now you want to start talking about the people who didn't like The Last Jedi online.
Come at me. I welcome it. Those movies were fucking amazing. Fuck you.
I love The Last Jedi.
Good.
We're on the same page.
It was so good.
Adapter Parish loves The Last Jedi.
Adapter Parish also loves Lady Ghostbusters. I want to say, okay, please continue.
Okay.
Do you feel
that I can't 100% commit to? I can 100% commit that I love all 4 of the Lady Ghostbusters. I can't commit that I love the movie. I'm very sorry. I love you so much. But let's talk about these movies. Let's talk about Wrinkles in Time.
Yes.
We're going to divide this up into some separate sections, really 4 sections that kind of define the success of an adaptation.
Yeah.
Casting, special effects and production design, writing, and vision.
Yes.
So we're going to go through all 4 of these, talking about these 2 movies.
Yes.
But it's not head-to-head combat, because 2018 would win every single time.
Right.
Which would be unfair.
It would be unfair.
So let's start talking about casting.
Yeah. Do you want to go through the characters? Do you think that would be the best way of doing it?
I think so.
Okay, cool.
So let's start with Meg.
Yes.
She is our main character.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the original 2003 movie, she is played by Katie Stewart.
Yes.
Who I could not find her. She's not in many things.
You know, the funny thing is you just said her name and the person I was going to compare her to was like a baby Kristen Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think they're related?
I don't know. It's Stewart spelled differently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
They're not related.
That's funny, though.
I will say this. I actually think Katie Stewart was good.
I think she was really good.
I think she had to carry this whole movie, and I think she did carry it.
Yes. She was definitely making the best of what she was given.
Right. So I think as far as casting goes, I think they did a good job casting her.
Yeah.
I think in the new one, they did a better job.
Like, I just want to talk about her for a second. Like,
Sure.
the way that she's described in the book is that she is kind of awkward. She's not really very girly. She's kind of a tomboy. Like, they definitely got that in the casting.
Yeah.
Like, she's definitely like really has that air of like sort of awkward girl in your middle school, but like not like the cool girl who knows who she is and doesn't care what people think of her. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like not like the cool tomboy that just knows who she is.
Yeah, I think that there are people who really like the 2003 version.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people grew up on it. I think if this part was cast poorly, no one would have liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely imagine being. I didn't see this movie as a young person, because it came out when I was like already in college. But I can certainly imagine seeing this and going, "Oh, I'm seeing myself on screen, and I've never seen that before."
Yeah.
Like if you're someone that feels and acts and thinks of yourself in a certain way, like I can absolutely imagine that you would see yourself in this character as portrayed on screen. So like, I got no beef with her performance.
No. And I don't have a beef with a lot of the portrayals in the 2003 version. But let's talk about Storm Reed.
Oh my God, she's amazing.
She's really, really fucking good in this movie. What is it about her performance that you responded to?
It's hard to say like any one specific thing, but I think she's just super real. Like I just get the impression that like she's a child actor. Like she's probably only 13. I actually just saw on Twitter the other day that it was her 15th birthday. So she couldn't have been older than 13 or 14 when they made this movie. She just seems like a really real person, that her reactions to things that happen are what anybody's reactions would be in that situation.
Yeah. I think kind of by definition, whoever plays the character of Meg can't have a really flashy performance.
Yeah.
Because they're the anchor for the movie.
Yeah, they have to be the in for the audience.
Right. And I think both versions did a good job casting.
Yeah.
I think 2018 did a better job.
Yeah.
Like I think it's important to cast someone who's very real and kind of anchors the whole movie for this character.
Yeah, totally. And her relationships with other people are very, very real. Like the way that she loves her little brother and her mom and her dad. Like her relationship with her mom and her dad is different. Her mom, like clearly, like she kind of feels like she needs to protect her mom. And then when, spoiler alert, they do find her dad, there's this moment of like, oh, my dad is here. He'll take care of me.
Yeah.
Like it's just really beautiful. I really loved her performance in this.
Well, there's another thing too. Let's jump straight to something that made you cry.
Yeah, okay.
But there's the scene where they go to rescue her father. They get to the planet Kamazats,
yes,
which is where he's being held captive. And the malevolent force called It, not the clown.
No, that's even worse.
The different one. Pennywise is worse than this.
Yeah.
He takes over Charles Wallace, her younger brother. And so they basically need to what's called Tesser. They Tesser away from the planet.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they leave her younger brother, and she's screaming at her father to stay.
Yeah.
To save him. And it was like that's probably the most I've seen you cry at a movie.
I have 2 little brothers.
Yeah. And that's what I said to you. It was like after that we had to pause it for a second. I just said, "Are you crying because you're thinking of your 2 brothers?" And you just said, "Shut up."
Of course, as an older sister, like you want to protect your younger brother. But like the thing that was interesting, the thing that struck, well, we can talk about it later, but like the thing that struck me as interesting is like, so their dad has been gone for 4 years. He's been captured. And Calvin is like, who comes with them, who we're going to talk about in a second, is like their new friend. So she's the only person who has a relationship really with Charles Wallace. And so it's her job to protect him.
Yeah.
Like her dad is her dad, and he's also Charles Wallace's dad, but he doesn't know Charles Wallace. Like especially in the 2018 movie, it's explicitly clear that like he disappeared very soon after Charles Wallace was born. And so he just doesn't know him. He doesn't have a relationship with him. So you can't fault him for being like, I need to save this person who I know and love, even if it's at the expense of this other person. And she's the only person going, you can't leave him. You can't leave him. He's my brother. You can't leave my brother. I'm going to cry.
Well, then let's move on. I'll save you from that. I'll save you from that.
No, that moment, I lost my train of thought. It's okay.
But so let's talk about her younger brother.
Yeah, Charles Wallace.
Let's talk about Charles Wallace.
Okay.
So in the 2003, he's played by an actor named David Dorfman.
I don't blame child actors for anything that they do in any movie. I am sure he is lovely and he's a baby. So this is not against him. But his performance in this 2003 film was excruciating.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Like the kid that plays him in the new one, an actor named Derek McCabe.
He was also not great.
He was also not great, but I thought there was something better about his performance.
It wasn't excruciating in the way that this child's was.
Yeah, I feel really bad about it. Can I tell you some things I found out about David Dorfman?
Yeah.
About the actor from 2003?
Sure.
So he was admitted to UCLA.
Okay.
Guess what age he was admitted?
Like, I don't know, 14?
13.
Yeah.
He graduated as the valedictorian.
Oh my God.
And then was admitted to Harvard Law at 18.
Oh my God.
Like
he actually was a prodigy.
Yes. Yeah.
Like this was a kid who actually was a prodigy.
And I think the thing that made him excruciating wasn't necessarily the actor's fault. I think that was more of the writing and the directing.
No, 100%. Like, clearly this is a smart child. Like, so the thing about Charles Wallace, the character Charles Wallace, is that he is so prodigiously intelligent that his dialogue is like an adult. It's not just that he uses big words, but that he speaks and relates to people and understands people on an exceptionally high level. And he's extremely verbal, and he's able to communicate exactly like what he's thinking and feeling and what you're thinking and feeling. He's very empathetic.
Yes.
So giving that task to an actual child is almost impossible because Charles Wallace is really not a child.
Yeah.
I think 2003, seeing this kid and going, oh, this kid is actually a prodigy. He's actually really smart. That makes total sense. We'll cast him, but his acting is not great.
No. So I said this to you at one point after we saw the 2018 one. It's weird to me that this movie's been remade multiple times, but never as an animated movie.
Yeah.
It kind of doesn't make sense to me because I think it really fits being animated. And the example that I gave you was King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Because King of the Hill has the character of Bobby Hill.
So good.
Who is a child.
Played by Pamela Adlon, who is a middle-aged woman.
Because that character could never be played in real life.
No.
That character has to be animated. And I feel like the character of Charles Wallace needs to be animated.
Yeah.
I don't think either of the child performances we saw were great, but there were some things I liked better about the new actor.
Yeah.
And it was not so much about the actor, but also about, because it's really casting and character.
Yeah, but it's writing too.
Well, yeah. So the way they portray the character is the big change they make. In the book, Charles Wallace doesn't talk to anybody outside the family.
Right. Much like The Godfather.
Yeah. In the 2003 version, he doesn't talk to anyone outside the family.
Yeah.
And you know this because they say it 50 fucking times.
So many times. And then when he does, it's like, oh my God, he's talking outside the family.
Which is such an awkward way of phrasing that.
Yeah.
It's so weird. In the new one, though, it's just kind of understood. Yeah, he talks to other people. He's just very weird.
He's just a little weird.
And what was you had the best observation, I thought.
Yeah. So Charles Wallace in the book and the 2003 movie. The way Charles Wallace is described is that he doesn't speak to anyone outside the family, but inside the family, he's a genius. He's basically a prodigy. And in the book and the first movie, that's how he is. And it's just funny because the behaviors that he displays in 2018, anyone looking at those behaviors would go, oh, he's on the spectrum. Well, we know how to treat children like that. Like, we know how to educate children who are on the autism spectrum, and we know the best way of giving them therapy and helping them, navigate the world. Like, that's something that we know how to do pretty well at this point. Like, that's very common. So I feel like if you put a kid in a movie in 2018 who is
nonverbal
and brilliant, by all accounts, autistic. But also the teachers don't understand him and make fun of him. Everyone's just going, oh, that's a really bad school. Like, why haven't they diagnosed him with something?
Yeah.
So they just had to make his behavior non-diagnosable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because he's not supposed to be pathologically distinct. He's supposed to be something that the world has never seen before. And if the behaviors that you're giving him to express are those of an autistic child or a child on the spectrum, but the adults around him are not responding appropriately as they would if those behaviors were exhibited by an actual child, the movie would not ring true. So that was my feeling as to why they just sort of cut that entirely in 2018.
Yeah. So I think the new one's cast better. I think it's written better, and the characterization of Charles Wallace is better.
Yes.
That brings us to Calvin.
Yeah.
We already said that Calvin kind of has the least reason to be there.
Yeah.
He's cast very similarly in the 2003 and 2018.
He's just a kid.
Yeah, he's very nice.
Yeah.
He's very nice.
He likes Meg. Oh, he likes her.
Oh, yeah. In terms of the 2003 one, it's Gregory Smith, who was in Small Soldiers in Everwood.
Oh, boy.
And then in the new one, it's Levi Miller, who's Australian, doing an amazing American accent.
Very good.
And he was in Pan. He played Peter Pan in Pan.
All right.
I actually liked them both.
Yeah.
I thought Levi Miller was fantastic, though.
Yes.
He actually sold the character for me. He's the only one of the two of them that said, I kind of don't know why I'm here, but made me believe, oh, he legitimately doesn't know why he's here and believes he needs to be here.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the 2018 movie, so spoiler alert, Meg and Calvin get married and have 1 million children.
Yeah.
In books that I have not read. But I think the 2018 movie, honestly, even better than the book, showed the burgeoning relationship between two 12-year-olds realistically.
Well, because it shows it as a friendship that's slowly turning into something that they can't explain. There's something that's attracting them to each other in ways they can't fully understand because they're children. And it can't be portrayed as a relationship growing the way adults would get into a relationship. There isn't this immediate sexual attraction between them because, again, they're children and that would be gross. So in the 2003 version, there's this immediate attraction.
Yeah.
It is clear that there were multiple points where you're like, they're going to kiss. They're going to kiss. I never felt that way in the new one.
No, and even in the book, very soon after they start off on their adventure, there's this point of Meg realized she was holding Calvin's hand and she really liked it. And I just don't think that would happen that early. In the 2018 movie, that aspect of their relationship didn't even really kick in until they got back, and then suddenly they were holding hands, and that was kind of cute because they've been through this thing together.
Right. I don't have much else to say about Calvin, which is kind of my problem with the character.
Yeah, and I bet people who have read all the books are sitting at home right now freaking out because there's so much I'm sure there's so much more about Calvin in subsequent books that we just don't know about. But I'm not too worried about it because we haven't read those books.
I'm not worried about it either.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Let's move on.
So we've got the parents.
Yes.
So I have this to say about the parents. If you're going to cast two adult actors who need to be in a relationship with each other, I think two things are important. I think you need to show them together to show how much they care about each other. And
I'm nodding vigorously.
Yep. And also, you need to cast people who have chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
And in 2003... the actors are never on screen together.
Yeah, there's no flashback at all.
None. They're together at the end when the dad gets back. And also, not only do we not see any chemistry between them, any little that we see, I don't think there's that much chemistry between these two actors.
No.
Whereas in 2018, we do see these characters in flashback.
Well, that's how the movie even begins.
Yeah.
In flashback.
Which actually, that's a separate quick sidebar.
Yeah.
Can I have a quick sidebar?
Yes.
Fuck narration when it's unnecessary. I hate voiceover when it's unnecessary. We've talked about voiceover a bunch on this show.
We have.
The 2003, of course, starts out with voiceover because when you're a bad writer, when you're a lazy writer, you add narration where it's not needed.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I got this information. I got to get out. Like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to have the main character narrate what's going on with their life so that the audience understands. Well, it's cinema. You can show what you want to show. You don't have to hear it.
Yeah.
The narration should only be used when it's necessary. And in this, it's unnecessary. And in the 2018 one, we actually see her parents' relationship with each other. We see a flashback of her before they adopted Charles Wallace, which we haven't talked about yet, which we'll talk about later when we're talking about kind of the overall writing of it. But a quick sidebar now. We actually get to see the parents together. We get to see them interacting with each other. We get to see how much her mom cares about her dad and vice versa.
Yeah.
Because, see, I'm totally getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Love is so important to the themes of the movie.
It's so important that we have to have it placed in the literal very first scene because they're talking about how they're adopting Charles Wallace. And the word adoption is really, it's used later in the movie, but in that first scene, and this is like a younger actor playing Meg, all that she says is, do you think I'm going to love him like a real brother? Like that's all we need.
Yep.
That's all we need to understand, that he is being adopted. And then they go into this whole thing where they explain to her like how love makes a family, basically.
And I'm going to stop you there because we are going to get to it.
Great.
Okay. So that's the parents. I do think they're better. I'm one of those people, I think it's actually funny. I think all of the people who play the parents are interesting in their own ways. The people in 2003, I just thought it was great that the dad is, he's an actor named Chris Potter.
Yeah.
And it's so funny that each of us had a reaction to him.
We each knew him from something very different.
Both from TV, both very specific.
Yes. What was yours?
Well, mine was, he plays Officer Peter Kane in Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, son of Kwai Chan Kane. And you knew him from...
I knew him from the Showtime TV series Queer as Folk.
Yep, he's in the first season, right?
Yes, he's the older sexy boyfriend of one of the characters. Also notable for probably the worst wig and beard wig I have ever seen on any actor in anything ever. I do want to say something now that we're sort of wrapping up talking about the family before we move on.
Yeah.
So when we did our episode on The Giver, I got really mad about something in the movie.
Yeah.
And the thing that I got really mad about was that despite the fact that we saw that people of color existed in the world, and despite the fact that nobody in the family unit is biologically related to each other, somehow, just coincidentally, everybody was white.
Yeah.
And I got real mad about it. And in this movie, they kind of did the opposite thing. And I really liked it, which was all they had to do to drop a line to explain why Charles Wallace was a different race than the other members of the family was just say he was adopted. And they have a white actor playing the dad, and they have an actress of color playing the mom, and the actor playing the daughter is mixed race because she is their biological child. And that makes a family where people are of different races and nobody is white, and it doesn't really matter. And I just think it goes to show that like you can do that in movies and it's really not a big deal. Like you have to explain it less than I think people think. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
All you have to do is cast 2 actors and then cast someone who looks like they could be their child. And that's all you have to do. It explains itself.
Yeah, totally.
The actress who plays the mother in 2018 is a British actress, actually.
Yeah.
Whose name is Gugu Mbatha Raw.
Yep.
Yeah.
She was in Belle and Black Mirror, stuff like that. And
Yes.
then the father is Chris Pratt?
Pine.
Pine.
The other one.
Yeah. One of the Chris's.
This movie made me like Chris Pine.
Which has never made sense to me because I think he's great.
I think he's gross.
I've been on the Chris Pine train for years now.
I dislike him. I don't understand why Wonder Woman would be attracted to him. I don't know. I don't get it.
I have nothing to say.
She had all those women on the island and she goes for Chris Pine?
All right, now we're getting off topic.
Why?
We do have a lot to get through. So let's start to break out a little bit. Now, I think it's time to I think we have an early contender for Sir not appearing in this film.
Please.
So you talked about the family unit, but I seem to remember in the book and the 2003 movie that she has 2 other brothers, 2 twins.
There's no twins in the 2018 version.
None. They do not appear.
Not a twin in sight. Those twins are useless.
And that's why, like, part of me says, like, well, they are a nominee for Sir not appearing in this film. But I feel like kind of what makes a good sir not appearing in this film is that their presence is missed.
Yeah.
And their presence is not missed.
Well, my favorite thing about them in the 2003 version was that they cast twins, like actual twins. It appeared to be. And then, like, in order to make it clear that they were just good red-blooded American boys, like, they're rough and tumble and they're outside, like doing sports and playing in the mud, they, like, tousled their hair but then gelled it in a very specific way, and it looked ridiculous. It didn't look naturally tousled. It just looked like they had a bunch of gel in their hair. It was very strange.
Mm-hmm.
It was very strange.
Yeah, I did not care for them. They weren't bad. It's just super annoying characters, but at the end of the day, they don't actually add anything.
Yeah, I mean, what they're in the movie for is to show the difference between Meg and Calvin and Charles Wallace and quote-unquote normal children.
Yeah. Now, my understanding is the twins become main characters in subsequent books.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. So I think there are some people who probably loved all the books that saw this movie and were like, what the fuck are you telling me they're not in it?
Yeah.
How can you... Wait, what the
They're
fuck?
very important.
What the fuck are you talking about?
But in this book, just reading this book, they're not important at all.
No, they really aren't.
Yeah.
And I understand people who would be frustrated by their lack of presence, but I am not frustrated by it.
No.
So that brings us to these three ladies.
Yes.
These three celestial ladies
Aww.
who are very weird and eccentric, and I think a lot of people who love the book really love these three women.
Yes.
Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Witch.
Yes.
In the 2003 version, they've got some star power. Mrs. Whatsit, the first one we're introduced to, is Alfre Woodard.
Yeah.
Who's clearly the big get.
Yeah.
But not big enough that she's not in the whole thing.
She was directed strangely.
Yeah, she made some bad choices.
Yeah.
But the way I would kind of distill everything from the 2003 version is both in casting and characterization, I don't think they really understood these characters.
No, because they're very distinct from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you really didn't get that sense. Like, you definitely understood that Mrs. Witch was in charge once she was introduced. But, like, for example, something that's very clear in the book is that Mrs. Whatsit is much younger than the other two. And she's 2 billion years old, but she's still much younger.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, like, it's required to make that specific thing clear, but, like, that would be a really good in if you wanted to characterize these people as different from each other. Like, make her act younger and have the other ones chastise her for being, heedless and thoughtless, which happens in the 2018 version. But they were all three very indistinguishable from each other.
And I think part of it is because I think they were all directed individually. I don't think their characters were defined in relation to each other.
Yeah.
I think they basically said to Alfre Woodard, you're playing a crazy old woman.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I'm playing a crazy
Great,
old woman.
I know how to do that. I'm Alfre Woodard.
They went to the actress playing Mrs. Who and said, you're playing a crazy old woman. Yeah. She was like, okay, I'll be a crazy old woman. And then they went to the actress playing Mrs. Witch, who she's fine.
Yeah.
She's not a crazy old woman, but there's nothing they never really react to each other. They never really interact with each other in any way that's interesting.
No, they have no relationship with each other. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Sidebar.
Yeah.
The way that Charles Wallace in that 2003 version said Mrs. Whatsit.
Oh, yeah.
Drove me crazy. I almost threw a stone through the TV. He kept saying Mrs. Whatsit.
And he was the only one in the movie that said it that way.
The only one that said it that way. And I didn't understand why. It was driving me crazy. So then anytime in that movie or the subsequent movie when anyone said Mrs. Whatsit, I would say, no, Mrs. Whatsit.
Whatsit. Yeah, it was weird.
Let's
move
on.
Weird.
Let's move on.
So in 2018, something funny happened.
Yes.
I want to describe my experience of watching this because I didn't know what to expect with these three ladies. Mm-hmm. Again, near the beginning of the movie, I was still thinking, I'm probably not going to like this because a lot of people didn't like it. So Reese Witherspoon appears as Mrs. Whatsit.
Yes.
She's not younger than Mindy Kaling, who plays Mrs. Who.
No, but the character is younger.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She's not actually younger, but the character is younger. And Reese Witherspoon is definitely younger than Oprah Winfrey, who plays Mrs. Witch. But she arrives and immediately acts young.
Yes.
I think a little too much. Here's one of my quibbles. When she arrives at their house and introduces herself to the family, she struck me as a young person going through a mental breakdown who has broken into a house. There was a sense of magic that was missing to like appropriately convince me that Mrs. Murray, Dr. Murray, the mother.
Yes, Dr. Murray, please use her correct title.
Of course. Would not immediately call the cops.
Yeah.
And I wasn't 100% sold on that. That's what I'll say
All
about
right,
that.
all right. She was making some choices.
But then I think throughout the movie, Reese Witherspoon ended up doing a very good job kind of selling this younger version of the character. You talked before about like saying things that are unkind and then being chastised for it
Yes.
because she's young. I think she did play that well. She's my least favorite of the Mrs.
Yeah.
W's in the new one. Because then we meet Mindy Kaling.
Yes. So I just want to say something about Mrs. Who, as described in the book and in the earlier movie. So Mrs. Who, what we learn about her is that she's basically transcended human speech. She doesn't have spontaneous speech. She can only speak in quotes from others, which can then be applied to the situation, which is actually really interesting, actually, with our earlier discussion of autism, because that's something that autistic people often do. They use scripting rather than their own spontaneous words, which I think is fascinating. And so in the book, the quotes, like she quotes a lot of people, and I'll just say like it's like the Buddha and lots of philosophers. And I'll just go out on a limb here and say like the quotes that are chosen, they're also all in totally different languages. Like she's sometimes in Greek and sometimes in Russian and sometimes in French, and maybe not things that like young people of today would really connect with necessarily. And in the 2003 version, she kind of starts out doing the quotes, like she does it like once or twice, and then I think they forget that that's supposed to be a thing with that character. But do you want to talk about how that works in the 2018 version?
All right. So in the 2018 version, Mrs. Who is played by Mindy Kaling.
Yes.
Which I didn't know what to expect with her.
Yeah.
An interesting thing happened with Mindy Kaling and me in this movie. I didn't know why until I had to think about it for a few days. I didn't know why at first, but every single time Mrs. Who said anything in this movie, I started crying.
You did. I can confirm I was there. This did happen.
And the worst part was I didn't know why.
Yeah.
Like you talked before, you would say to me like, "Why are you crying?"
And be like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know why.
She's doing something to me, you would say.
I figured it out.
Okay.
I think.
And you wouldn't tell me until just now. So I have not heard this. I don't know the answer.
I think it's a combination of two things. Okay. One, I have a really big thing for sincerity.
Yes.
I'm not a huge fan of cynicism. So one thing is Mindy Kaling's, both the writing of the character and Mindy Kaling's portrayal of the character is utterly joyful and sincere.
Yes.
That is true.
Yes.
She is consistent through the entire movie. She has this look on her face of utter joy for most of the movie that is one of the most believable things I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I've always felt that doesn't surprise me too much about Mindy Kaling is that she likes things.
Yes.
Mindy Kaling is someone who enjoys things. So that's one part of it. But the other part was their application of the conceit of the character, their application of the conceit of the quotes. And this goes back to 2003. I don't think they got it.
No.
I don't think they understood what the quotes actually meant for this character, which is why she kind of stops quoting halfway through. In this version, the few times she doesn't quote, they give a reason for why she's not quoting.
Yeah, it's like they're getting weaker, so she's sort of come back down to earth a little bit, so she can actually generate language.
They did some things that I have seen some kind of conflict about on the internet.
Okay.
Because they add some quotes.
Oh, well, they change a lot of them. Like,
yeah.
It's like all like very obscure like philosophers in the book.
Mm-hmm. In the movie, there are certainly some of those quotes, but she also quotes songs and pop culture.
Doesn't she quote like Chance the Rapper or somebody at one point?
She quotes Outkast.
She quotes Outkast, yeah.
Yeah. And like Calvin immediately knows that it's Outkast.
Yeah.
And that got me to cry.
Yeah.
Because she is quoting something that she knows the person in front of her will understand. She's not quoting just to be weird. She's quoting to communicate.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
And I think the thing that made me cry was a combination of the sincerity and also the unflinching, consistent portrayal of this character.
Yes.
They thought about every single word that this character said.
Yes.
Mindy Kaling even said later, she was like, this was a movie where I couldn't improvise, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
I loved her in this.
Yeah. Can we talk about 20-foot Oprah, please?
Is she 20 feet? I mean, like,
she's very tall.
Was that special effects or was that?
Tall.
Isn't Oprah like that
no,
big
she's. Though? I mean, she's only like 14 or 15 feet, so they definitely like made her a little bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess just like forced perspective.
I love 20-foot Oprah. I didn't think I would like it when she first was revealed to be extremely tall. I was like, oh, what is this? I really love 20-foot Oprah.
I went into this fully expecting to not like Oprah in it.
Yeah.
It felt like stunt casting.
Yeah.
And then in watching it, I realized what they were doing.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what the movie was about. And we're going to talk about this more, so I'll just say it briefly.
Yeah.
The movie thematically is about loving who you are.
Yes.
Loving yourself. And which actor in current pop culture represents that more for people, especially, I'm making an assumption here, I'm speaking as a white man.
Yes.
For black women and young black women, who can represent that more than Oprah Winfrey?
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing on a meta level that really touched me, because she definitely has this one-on-one conversation with Meg that's just the two of them where, I mean, it's probably 5 minutes that everybody else has kind of gone away.
Oh, it's not. It's less than a minute.
Yeah. Okay. So it's short. I see. It seems longer.
Yeah.
But everyone else has kind of moved away, and she has this very intense conversation with Meg, and I couldn't even think about it on a movie level. I was literally thinking about Oprah Winfrey having a conversation with a 13-year-old black girl or mixed race girl. And telling her to love herself and love who she is. And that really got me.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason that they cast fucking Oprah in this movie.
But the thing about it that's great is that Oprah's actually a good actor.
She's a really good actor, and we're going to talk about her in a future episode.
Yeah. So if you're like a kid watching this and you don't know anything about who she is, you still can respond to it.
Totally.
It works on multiple levels.
Yeah.
I have nothing bad to say about Oprah's portrayal in this movie.
No, she's great.
I thought she was great.
She's great. The one in the 2003 was okay. She's fine.
She's fine. She's portrayed exactly the way someone who doesn't really think hard about the source material or what they can do with it would cast her.
Yeah, she's just kind of saying the lines.
Of course, she's an older actress who has a little more gravitas than the other actors.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that character to be super effective needs more than that, and they understood that in 2018.
Yep.
So there's a few other kind of, I'll call them celestial characters that we have. So there's the happy medium.
Yeah.
I think the happy medium in the course of the story is probably less of the story. So I don't think we need to spend a ton of time talking about them.
No, but I do want to talk about the casting decisions for both of these because it's fascinating.
Okay. So who? Let's bring gender into this for a second.
Great.
The happy medium is what gender in the book?
Explicitly female.
Okay. And the happy medium is played by actors in both movies of what gender?
Male.
Okay. So that right off the bat is interesting.
Yes.
They made their decisions. They made their decisions to adapt. I will say this, in the book, there's nothing about the character that needs to be female.
No, and there's also nothing about gender at all.
Right.
It's just a female character.
Right.
Like there's nothing, they don't talk about, it's just not there. There's stuff in both of these movies that is not there in the book, which is interesting.
So what they did in 2003 is they cast a man.
Yes.
So what they thought about in 2003 in the writing is, what if we made the character androgynous?
Because it's a happy medium. It's in between. And that's really cool.
That's fine.
That's great. Very interesting.
Here's what do you think would be something that you could do as a filmmaker to undermine that?
I would say, here's something you could do to undermine it.
Yeah.
You could cast someone who is clearly male and identifies as male.
Yep.
And not really do anything to them in terms of costuming or makeup to make them sort of more towards the middle of the spectrum, where there might be some reasonable blurring of lines between male and female, which is great. Like, there's lots of genders. There's more than 2 genders. I just want to be clear. But you wouldn't really do anything to support that with your production choices. And then have one character kind of obnoxiously whisper to another character, "Is that a man or a woman?" And have everybody be confused.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's something you could do to undermine it, which is cast a man, and what's something you could do to make the audience very confused? Have one of the characters refer to them and say, "I don't know if it's a man or a woman."
And
it's a man.
I just want to be really clear, like, I don't want to be transphobic about this. Like, I want to be very clear. Like, if someone identifies as female, you have every right to do that. And that is who you are. And like, we love you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's what this movie was going for. I don't think what the message of this movie was this person was assigned male at birth and they are a woman. And that is confusing to the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just, they cast someone who was male and thought it would be confusing. And I don't really understand why. I don't really understand where the confusion came in.
Yeah. It's very confusing. It's very bad. I will say I really like the actor that plays the happy medium in 2003.
Yeah, he did a great
It's
job.
a Canadian actor named Sean Cullen. I've been a fan of his for a very long time. He's a really good comedian. He's like Canadian Zero Mostel or Nathan Lane, because I found out on stage he's done Max Bialystock and the Producers and also Pseudolus, and a funny thing happened on the way to the
I
forum.
thought you were going to say he did Tevye, which is funny.
No. But he definitely, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
In the new one, though, it's Zach Galifianakis.
Yes.
Can you quickly characterize how you felt about the portrayal of the character?
He was real sweet.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, Zach Galifianakis is one of those people where by casting him, you're allowing the character to be ridiculous because the actor can be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they're incredibly sincere and pointed, it is surprising for an audience that wasn't expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's satisfying for an audience that was expecting it.
Yeah, there was one moment where he was like, don't be like me. I have a beard and I live in a cave.
Yeah. I thought that was really inspired casting.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you're making part of the audience have an expectation that they're going to be ridiculous, but then they're very sincere, and that makes it more affecting.
Yeah, he was very sweet. And he, like, taught her to believe in herself.
Yeah.
Like,
which, again, we'll talk more about
sort
later.
of the point of the movie.
Yeah. So I really liked him.
Yeah.
There's also the man with red eyes.
Oh, so creepy.
So one of the planets that they go to is Camazotz, which I mentioned before.
Yeah.
This planet has been taken over by this malevolent force called It.
Yes.
And It talks to the kids through a character called the Man with Red Eyes.
Right.
Is there anything special that you can say about the casting and characterization of the Man with Red Eyes in 2003?
No.
There's nothing special about it. There's
No.
nothing particularly interesting about it. He's just, of course, like a white dude who, just a white dude in his 30s who is malevolent and he's having fun with what he's doing.
He takes over the brain of Charles Wallace.
Yeah.
That's the important thing to know.
And there's nothing particularly interesting about their portrayal of the character. I'd even go so far as to say there's nothing particularly interesting about him in the book. At least nothing that would necessitate, like, pages and pages.
Yeah.
Like, in the 2003 version, he becomes the villain.
Yes.
Whereas in the book, there's a clear delineation. There's It,
Yeah.
which is like a giant brain.
Yeah. And then he's talking through this guy.
And so he's less important than the brain is. You called him like Krang in Ninja Turtles.
That's what I kept picturing.
But in 2003, they make him It.
Yes.
He is the manifestation of that. Whereas in 2018, they did a really smart thing that I liked a lot, is they cast an actor, Michael Pena, who I've been a fan of for a really long time. They just call him Red.
Yeah.
And he's got sunglasses on. And I'm just like, oh, when are you going to take your sunglasses off? When are we going to see that you have red eyes? And of course he does. And we see that he has red eyes. He is the mouthpiece for It.
And the brain isn't just a brain in a jar. It's like the entire world.
Yeah.
Is like, you can see like these like brain tentacles kind of cropping up.
And that's in both versions.
Yeah, that's
They do
true.
that in both versions.
Okay.
So it's not just a brain on a table.
You're
like
right.
it kind of is in the book.
Yeah, it's Krang.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear.
So the thing they did with Michael Pena in the new one that I really liked is he's really only in 2 scenes. He greets the children when they get to Camazotz. He is really nice to them at first, which he's supposed to be because he's trying to like bring them in. It is understood very quickly that he is only a mouthpiece for the real creature.
Yeah.
And he goes away.
Yeah.
He's not in the rest of it. I thought he was cast well, and I thought the character was treated the right way.
Yeah.
He's a minor character should be treated as such.
He's very creepy. I mean, there's one thing in the book that doesn't happen in either of the 2 movies, which is that Meg and Calvin and Charles Wallace like have an interaction with It. Like, they have a whole conversation before Charles Wallace gets taken over. And I kind of miss that. Like, I miss that they had talked to him and kind of laid out where they're coming from, and he lays out where he's coming from, and it's all very clear. Maybe you don't really need that in a movie. Like, it's clear that he's evil, and it's clear that he kind of understands like that they are trying to make him not harm people or whatever. So maybe you don't need it, but like that was like very distinctly missing from both movies, and it does happen in the book.
Mm-hmm. So just to wrap up with the characters, there's only one last character, which we just talked about, Krang from Ninja Turtles. There's It. In the new movie, do you know who did the voice of It?
No.
It was David Oyelowo,
Oh, okay.
who played Martin Luther King in Selma.
Right.
also directed by Ava DuVernay.
Ah, there it is.
And I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
I really enjoy seeing that when a director has a relationship with a really good actor and they bring them back for interesting stuff like that.
I didn't know she directed that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was her big movie.
That's awesome.
That was her big break. I think that was part of why she directed this.
Mm.
But anyway, that's the cast. I think it is clear at every step the 2018 version is just cast in a more interesting, more relevant way than the 2003 version. Would you agree with that?
I would agree totally.
Great. So that brings us to production design and special effects.
Yes, indeed.
Kind of the look of everything.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, let's just say it is unfair to compare a 2003 TV movie to a 2018 $100 million movie.
I mean, I can't even imagine the difference in budget.
So I have a couple things I want to say, and you have something you want to talk about, right?
Yes.
Do you mind if I start?
No.
So I want to talk about tessering. I want to talk about the way that they travel from planet to planet and how that is shown. Now, the interesting thing is, to me, and this really speaks to what you can do with a limited budget, in 2003, what did tessering look like?
Oh, they're just like floating like Peter Pan.
Yeah, they're just like floating up.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of digital rippling going on around them and lots of bright lights. And it's like the best special effects that $12 could buy in 2003. That's essentially what it was. And they wanted it to look good. They're like, we have no budget. We want to make this look as good as we possibly can.
This is where we're throwing our money, and you
Right.
can tell that we're going to throw money at this.
And it looks like shit.
Yeah, it's
it
not
looks
great.
Very bad. But in the new one, there certainly is something that tessering looks like, but they're not using special effects to show tessering as much as they're using editing.
Yeah.
When they tesser in the new one, they start to tesser, they cut, they show you a few seconds of what it looks like inside the tesser, and then they immediately cut and they're where they're supposed to be.
Because that's what it's like. Like,
Exactly.
It's very quick. That's the whole point.
And yes, I'm sure it cost more in the new one than it did in the old one. However, I bet the tessering effect cost way less in the new one relative to its budget than it did in the old one relative to its budget.
It's probably true.
I think it was probably one of the cheaper special effects that they did.
Yeah.
Other than when she tessers at the end when she believes in herself, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Cool.
So tessering just way better in the new one than in the old one, even though I think they managed to do it for not a lot of money because they actually use editing.
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about something, though.
Yeah, this isn't like so much a contrast between the two as just something that I really, really liked about the 2018 version is that the costumes of the Mrs. W's were so amazing.
Yeah.
I loved them. They were so interesting to look at. They were so intricate. They were very colorful. They were very sparkly. The three of them were always distinguished between the three. Like everyone had sort of their own style, but every time they tessered, they would change, which makes sense because they talk all the time about like, oh, this is just the form we're showing you.
Yeah.
Like we are sort of nothing. Like we sort of form ourselves in any way that we choose. And the fact that what they looked like changed every time, and it was just so interesting to look at, made those characters very fascinating to watch because you were always wondering like, oh, what are they going to look like next time? What are they going to look like next time?
That's reminding me, I didn't even think about this in the 2003 version, but like Mrs. Whatsit shows up in the beginning, and the whole thing is she's like stolen sheets to make her clothes.
Yeah.
So she's wearing this kind of patchwork kind of clothing. And Alfre Woodard is wearing something that looks like that in the beginning, but then they test her to the planet Uriel. It's the first kind of alien planet that the kids see. Alfre Woodard's dressed the same way, though. So she tessered in her, like, sheets.
Yeah.
Whereas in the new one, Reese Witherspoon looks different every place they test her to.
Yeah.
Because she needed that on Earth, but she doesn't need it on Uriel.
Right, because she can just make whatever she wants.
I loved the costumes. I thought they looked great.
I thought they were great.
I would have not liked it if they were wearing the same costume the entire time, but because they changed so often and so consistently, I loved it.
Yeah, I really love that.
Now, occasionally some of these characters are not the physical beings that we see them as. Mm-hmm. And this is what I would like to end on.
Okay.
In terms of special effects and production design. So when they arrive on Uriel, Mrs. Whatsit wants to take the kids up to like high into the stratosphere to see this dark, malevolent force that they're going to be fighting.
To explain to them visually what is going on.
So she turns into a creature.
She does.
In the book, give me some quick ways that this creature is defined and described.
It's a Pegasus.
Well, kind of.
It's like a white horse.
But it's got the face of a person.
With the face of a person and big white wings.
Yes.
And they climb on its back and they fly all around.
Okay. Now, in the 2003 movie, I was fully expecting a Pegasus.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you, I'm going to link to the cover. I'm assuming people who have not seen the 2003 version have seen the cover of it. And on the cover, you have 3 kids, our 3 heroes, on the back of a Pegasus.
Oh, just a horse with wings.
Yep.
Literally a white horse with wings.
Do you know what they're flying above
No.
in the picture? They're flying above a castle.
Oh, there's no castle.
No, none whatsoever.
No, yeah, I think that's from something else.
There's also no Pegasuses in this movie.
No, there's no Pegasus.
Okay. So in the movie, she's about to change, and I'm expecting, okay, well, here we go. We're going to get our horse with wings. That is not what happens.
No.
She turns into the most horrifying CGI kind of horse with wings creature.
It's so scary.
With like Fabio face.
Yeah.
Like really bad CGI Fabio face.
It's so creepy.
It's awful.
It's awful to see.
And every time the character talks, it's talking at them, and you're seeing them in the shot, and you're hearing Alfre Woodard talking over it, because I'm sure they could not get the lips to match up with the dialogue.
No, they definitely couldn't. And then at one point you actually see them mount the Pegasus, and it's so very clearly like a pommel horse with some white like horsehair fabric thrown over it. Like it is just like a piece of wood that they are climbing atop. And I can't emphasize enough how horrifying this Pegasus is.
It's awful.
Yeah.
So in the new one, I didn't quite know what to expect.
They avoided the Pegasus altogether.
They turn Reese Witherspoon into a flying lettuce monster.
They do.
Which I actually had no problem with. You had a little bit of a problem with it.
I will say it is a better lettuce monster than the 2003 Pegasus is a Pegasus. But I still did not feel like the face animation was all that it could have been.
I liked it.
Okay.
It did not bother me that much.
Great.
I thought that whole scene was just executed much better. And it's one of these things where, like, yes, they had a bigger budget, but they made something that matched their budget.
Yeah.
They made a lettuce monster. They could afford a lettuce monster, so they made a lettuce monster. And the old one, they tried to make a CGI Fabio Pegasus, and they could not afford a CGI Fabio Pegasus.
It could not.
They made one, but it was bad.
It was poor.
Ugh. So it's just, yeah, I think that's really my final thing about it is I do think it is unfair to compare apples to apples, special effects and production design in the new one to the old one. I think it's when you look at it as a percentage of budget.
Yeah.
It's clear that I think in the new one they spent their money better than in the old one. I think this could have been done for the small budget, but you can't do your CGI Fabio Pegasus. You just can't.
You gotta do something different.
It's not going to work, so don't do it. It's not going to happen. Make it a horse and have them not fly.
Yeah.
Change it.
Or whatever.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can do it.
Let's move on.
Okay, so let's talk about writing.
Okay.
Now, the 2003 version was not written by... Actually, I found this out, which I thought was interesting. It's written by a woman named Susan Shilladay.
Okay.
Susan Shilladay wrote basically one other thing, not counting her like 9 episodes of 30-something. She wrote Legends of the Fall.
No.
Just Legends of the Fall and the 2003 Wrinkle in Time.
So strange.
Yeah, it's really weird.
It's very odd.
So I think in order to talk about the writing of the 2003 version, we have to talk about the fact that if you were to see it now, it is not being watched the way it was originally intended.
As a television spectacular.
It was supposed to be a miniseries.
Oh, I see.
It was supposed to be a multi-episode miniseries
Got it.
shown over the course of several
With
nights.
like commercial breaks, of course.
Do you know how long it took for it to get released?
Oh, like a couple years.
It was like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because it's not good.
And finally, they cut it down from what I'm imagining was probably like a 3.5 hour, 4 hour like TV miniseries.
Yeah, like 4 hour long episodes.
To an hour and 28 minutes.
Yeah.
No, sorry, 128 minutes.
Yes.
So 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Yeah, because it was long.
It's very long. It's too long.
It's too long.
Because I think what was going on is they were like, well, we have this very, very long thing. Well, we can't cut it down. We got so much good stuff in it. But they could have gone way further than they did.
Yeah.
It's written like a multi-part TV show. You could tell where the cliffhangers are.
Yeah. Well, there's one scene in particular that I want to talk about just
Yeah.
in terms of the actual writing.
Mhm.
So, okay. Meg and Charles Wallace and Calvin go to rescue Meg's father
Mhm.
on Camazotz, which I keep thinking Camelot in my mind.
Nope.
And then I get the song stuck in my head.
Camazotz
Camelot.
is not a silly place.
I just hear, no, it's not that. It's even further back. It's Camazotz.
Oh, yeah. I'm always going to think of Holy Grail.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, and they're like trapped in this room, and Meg is basically able, through the power of her mind, to kind of move through the wall and find her father, who's trapped kind of like behind the wall in space-time. And it's this reunion scene, and he's so happy to see her, and he's horrified that it's been 4 years. He thinks it's been like a day. Like, he thinks it's not been a very long time, and she's grown up, and like Charles Wallace is like not a baby, and all of this stuff is happening. This happens in both versions and in the book. And then they come back out to where Charles Wallace and Calvin are waiting for them. And Charles Wallace, by this point, has been taken over by it. It sort of has control of his mind. So he's just like saying and doing all these horrible things. And two things. In the book and in the 2018 movie, something that Meg has to do that's really interesting, because the father doesn't know Charles Wallace. She has to keep saying to him, Dad, he's not like this. He's not like this. Because Charles Wallace is being just a shit. Like, he's just being a little shit. And she just has to keep saying, no, you don't understand. This isn't him. He's been taken over. And the dad is just thinking he's a brat. Like, my kid is a brat.
Because he hasn't seen him since he was 2.
He hasn't seen him since he was a little kid. But that doesn't really happen in 2003. That's not a conversation that they have. The only thing that happens is that, like, Charles Wallace is kind of playing with them in this sort of cat and mouse way, and Meg is like hovering. This is, again, like a special effect that they clearly spent some money on.
Can I describe it really quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
So essentially, it's a big room. There's a big chasm in the middle of the room. It's kind of like in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indy's on one side of the chasm and Alfred Molina's on the other side. So Red, the man with red eyes, has Charles Wallace on one side of the chasm, and then Meg, Calvin, and the dad are on the other side of the chasm. And the chasm is getting wider.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of setting up the scene. And Meg is floating above the chasm because in this version, Charles Wallace has telekinesis.
Apparently.
And is floating her.
Yeah. And and they're just trying to get to her. The dad and, I'm going to call him Dr. Dad Murray as opposed to Dr. Mom Murray. And they're trying to get to her, and they're trying to get to her, and they're trying to grab her hand. And I would say it's fully 5 minutes that the only dialogue is the three of them clearly ad-libbing. No, Charles Wallace. No, don't do it. Don't do it. Charles Wallace. No. Like, there's no dialogue between them. And it's so frustrating to watch because it's exceptionally boring.
It is the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
I love it. I had more fun watching that scene than any other because it is very bad.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Anyone who has seen it, anyone who wants to see it, it's an incredible scene.
Incredible in a bad way.
Oh my! 5 minutes. I think your assessment is correct.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 minutes of just that dialogue over and over again.
It's very bad, and I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know. Like, I don't know who watched that and went, "Oh yeah, no, we need 5 minutes of this."
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about 2018 for a second.
Yes.
Let's talk about who wrote this movie. So it was written by Jennifer Lee after a draft by a man named Jeff Stockwell.
Okay.
I didn't do as much research into him because she was way more interesting.
Great.
Do you know what other movie she wrote and co-directed?
No.
Little movie called Frozen. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, yeah. We saw it together. That's another one on the list of movies that make Jeremy cry.
Do you know what her current job is?
No.
She is the chief creative officer at Walt Disney Animation Studios.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That seems like a high position.
Yeah, she took over for John Lasseter.
Oh, good.
You know why.
Did you do bad?
Oh, you don't know?
Did you do a bad job?
Oh, yeah. John Lasseter's creep.
What did he do?
Oh, he's just a creep and is really, really creepy to all women.
Did he do a #MeToo?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, John. Oh, I thought you knew about that.
No, I didn't know.
She took over. She did. Basically, I think this was a case of Disney saying, we're going to take our very best.
Yes.
And we're going to put her on this.
Great.
She said she loved the book. She said it's been one of her favorite books for 30 years. I think she did an incredible job of adapting this book into a movie.
It's very good.
I've been kind of holding off on saying this. I'm going to say it now.
Okay.
Reactions. No, I was going to say reactions be damned. No, I accept all reactions to this. This may not be something that a lot of people agree with. I think the 2018 Wrinkle in Time is better than the book.
I think it's better than the book too. I think she did better.
There are things...
She did a better job. You know why? Because I enjoyed watching this movie more than I enjoyed reading the book.
Way more.
There it is.
For me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's a conversation you can have about the fact that adapting something is not as hard as coming up with it in the first place.
That's fair.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
No.
I do think this is a better movie than the book was a book. And I'm going to give one example of that.
Go for it.
In the book, Meg has to save Charles Wallace.
Yes.
And she does it by realizing what?
The power of love.
That is what helps her save Charles Wallace.
Her baby brother.
It's presented in the book as a big revelation. The problem that I have with it is that it comes out of nowhere. I found the end of the book a huge letdown. I'm basically going through this entire book And there's basically like 10 pages left and she has to save Charles Wallace.
Yeah.
And she goes back to Camazotz and she faces off against it. And she has to figure out what it is that's going to break Charles Wallace free. And the entire time I'm thinking like, what is it? What is the thing that's going to break him free? I don't know what it is as a reader because nothing has been set up. There has been no foreshadowing for what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then she figures out, oh, it's love. And she says to him, like, Charles Wallace, no matter what you do to me, I will still love you. And it does not understand love.
And it freaks out.
And it freaks out, and Charles Wallace breaks free, and she escapes with him.
Yeah.
So in the book, that's never foreshadowed.
Yeah.
So it just happens. And in reading it, I was thinking like, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. Like, they love each other. That's fine. But it didn't affect me.
Yeah.
Certainly didn't affect me on an emotional level. It was nice. You made a comment before I read the book. You said, it's going to make you cry. And it didn't at all. And then I saw the movie, the 2018 movie. And the thing that the 2018 movie does, it sets up love as a thematic aspect of the movie very, very early on in the very first scene. And it's not just, oh, you love your family. It's not as simple as that.
No, not
it's
at all.
love in all of its forms. Because another aspect of the movie it's hinted at in the book, but it's certainly not central to it, is the idea of self-love.
Yeah.
And accepting who you are and loving yourself. And in the 2018 movie, the thing that allows Meg to love her brother is to also realize that he loves her.
Right.
And that she is deserving of love.
There you
right?
go.
It sounded like I was breaking up. I'm actually not. I'm shocked that I got through that without crying.
Right, because she says that, because this is different from the book or the first movie, which is not only saying to him over and over, I love you, Charles Wallace, I love you, because she says to him, you love me.
Mm-hmm.
You love me. That's important.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that you have to try and remember, that you love me.
Mm-hmm.
And you love me for who I am, and it doesn't matter that people think I'm weird or awkward or my hair is such a way. Like, you love me, Charles Wallace, and that's what's going to set you free.
Right.
And it does.
And it works so much better because it's been set up. And then there's the self-love part of it, which you were talking before about the conversation that Oprah Winfrey is having with Meg. She's having this conversation with her, and Meg basically says, tessering's really hard. It's really unpleasant. And we see Meg tesser, and every time she does it, it's clearly painful.
And it's like easy for everybody else,
Yeah.
but she always has a really hard time with it.
And I'm paraphrasing at this point because I've only seen it the one time, but essentially Mrs. Witch says to her, like, you don't want to even be you when you come out the other side.
Yeah.
I think she asks her something like that, and Meg goes like, can I be someone else?
Yeah.
And they have a conversation where Mrs. Witch says, like, you have to accept who you are. You have to love who you are. You're great. And then at the end, when she wins, when she saves Charles Wallace and they test her back, in order to understand how much she loves him and how much he loves her, she has to accept that she is deserving of that love. And she accepts who she is. And we see her tesser for the first time, wanting to be her when she comes out the other side.
And she does it successfully.
And it's beautiful. It's this amazing balletic dance through the Tesseract.
Yeah. As opposed to every other time we've seen it from her perspective, where it's just like very unpleasant and gray and painful.
And this time it's joyful.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone about it the other day. We were talking about, so one thing that I respond to in movies is really, really good foreshadowing. The best way I can describe it is, I really respond when a filmmaker presents all of the puzzle pieces to you and allows you to put them together before the filmmaker puts them together. And I think that makes a really rewarding experience, because when Meg is about to tesser, she then tessers, and it's beautiful, but at no point is it ever explicitly said the reason she can tesser well now is because she loves herself.
Right.
We were given one conversation earlier, and that informs this new action that we're seeing.
Right.
But we're allowed as an audience to put those pieces together ourselves.
Yeah, it's not overtly explained.
Right. And there are other movies where the filmmaker will withhold all of the puzzle pieces, and then they present them to you already assembled, and that's a twist.
Yeah.
And I like a twist sometimes, but I don't respond to that as much. I've never had a twist make me cry.
Yeah.
But that's basically where I am with that. I think this movie is one that presented the pieces to me in a really good way, allowed me to assemble them, and then experience the movie differently.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I have a point about that I think is going to lead into our next big thing, which is about the director's vision. And this, I think, supports kind of your idea, like, this movie was better than the book, because in the book, right, she loves her brother. She loves her brother, but there's no there's never any doubt that she would love her brother. And the moral seems to be like, well, of course you love him because he's your brother.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. Like, he's unusual and they have a great relationship. But like, at the end of the day, the reason that she loves him is because he's her brother. Whereas in this movie, literally in the first scene, you have Meg saying to her father, essentially, I'm worried that I won't love him because he's not related to me biologically. And then the parents are able to have a conversation with her about what a family means and why we love each other and how that works. You know, it's like your family of we choose to be a family. He's very special and he's come to us. He's chosen us to be his family. And that's from the director or the writer, but like that's vision that didn't come from the book. That's something that they chose to emphasize and to drive home as movie makers, and not just as people like taking the book and cutting it apart with scissors and like, okay, here it is as a movie.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's about adding the right things to flesh it out.
Yeah.
And make it more cinematic.
Yeah. So let's talk about that.
Well, no, just one other quick thing that I was going to say in terms of the writing about that first scene. And this is small. I promise it's quick. But it's the idea that, you know, I feel like movies have to deal with exposition constantly. And I talked about how in the 2003 version, the writing just adds voiceover.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really hard in movies is to show relationships between characters. You can't just have every character say, well, hey, mom, hey, dad, hey, bro, hey, sis. That's just a way to get the audience to understand what the relationships are. But in this one, in that first scene, she's talking to her dad, and they're clearly father and daughter.
Yeah.
They're acting like father and daughter. But then the mom walks in. We don't know that that's the mother. But then Chris Pine says this line where he talks about moms and dads. And he's looking up at her as he says it. He's saying the line to his daughter, but he's looking up at the mom. And I think it's one of the most elegant ways to write a familial connection into basically exposition.
Yeah.
It does not feel like exposition.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was written beautifully.
Yeah. No, it's great.
But getting to vision, let's talk about the vision of this movie.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting because a lot of conversation that you see like on the internet about adaptation, like making movies out of books or making new versions of things, is people saying, this character has to be this way because I see myself in this character, and I can't see myself in a character if that character doesn't look exactly like me, right? Mm-hmm. Superheroes is an example where this comes up sometimes. And I just think this movie is such a brilliant example of a director saying, I read this book and here are the things that I relate to, but I'm going to make a movie where I can see myself as this character, where I can see someone who looks like me as this character. And the fact that she was given budget and leeway and studio backing to do that, I think
she was given $100 million to do that.
I think is so amazing. I can't think of another example of that, of something like that, where someone said, I'm going to take this classic book and I'm going to change it so that the character, I'm not going to change anything about the character. I'm not going to change their core or their journey, but I'm going to make that person look like me. And I love that. I think that's so amazing. And she just interjected all of this cool stuff into this movie. They go to James Baldwin Middle School, for example. And when Meg is at her locker, you can see like a poster on the wall behind her and it's Maya Angelou. And that's not in Madeleine L'Engle's 1964 book, A Wrinkle in Time. She doesn't say Meg was standing in her locker and there was a picture of Maya Angelou behind her, but that was something that was important to the director. And I think that's amazing. One of the things that happens is Meg says, I don't like my hair. Or she actually, no, I don't think she ever says I don't like my hair. Calvin says to her, I like your hair. And she says, don't talk about my hair.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good. But then later on in the movie, when they're like in a river and you see her like caring for her hair in a way that she knows how to, like, this is going to be so specific. She knows how to get her hair wet and put it up into a bun and twist it around, just the hair around the hair without even having a hairband so it stays up in a bun, which my hair won't do that because I'm not a person of color. But like, you're seeing a person of color care for their hair in a very natural way that you wouldn't see if the person who directed this movie was a white man. Even if he cast the same actor, I don't know that you would see that because that's not something in his experience that he knows to put on screen.
Yeah.
Is that making sense? Like you're seeing things in this movie through the eyes of the director that she's putting in there so that people will see themselves in this movie.
Well, I think that's the thing that defines authenticity is details.
Yeah.
And someone who has no experience with those details either can't or has a very hard time bringing authenticity to it.
Yeah.
They have to work so much harder to do it.
Yeah.
And I think for her, it seemed like this was just natural for her.
Yeah.
It felt like very natural authenticity.
Yeah. Totally.
Like where they live, who they interact with, the people they interact with. It's the world they live in is a very racially diverse world.
Yes.
But there's a way to present a racially diverse world where it is apparent that it's filmmakers trying to create a racially diverse world. And there's a way to do it that just feels natural and you don't think about it. The Giver is a way to do it that makes you very aware that that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
This is a movie where this is just the world they live in. And it just feels good to watch because it actually feels like the world we live in.
Right. Her race is never mentioned. Her race is never mentioned because it's a movie that features people of color where the plot of the movie is not about them being black. And that is super rare. Like if we can talk about like the things that we're trying to talk about on this podcast, where we're trying to find, for example, authors of color who are prominent enough to have had their work adapted, which is rare enough to begin with, but then to have those works not be slave narratives, like it's almost impossible. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen that you have a movie that the characters are racially diverse and it's not a movie about race.
Mm-hmm. I think it is superficial. I think the way race is treated is superficial. And I don't mean that as a pejorative.
No.
I mean, it's superficial in the good way, which is it's just presented to you. Like you say, the characters are not the way they are because of that, but there's no reason the characters can't be of color.
Yeah. And that's what makes me a little bit upset when I see people saying, I didn't like this movie, because my fear is that what they're saying is, I pictured that character looking like me, and she didn't look like me.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
It really is a shame. So race is certainly part of Ava DuVernay's vision for this. But there was one other part of it that we mentioned before, and this is the biggest one to me, and I feel like it can be shown in so many different ways through this movie, is the outright, unflinching sincerity that she brings to the entire thing. One thing that bothered me in the 2003 version is the sense of ironic detachment that all of the characters show throughout the entire movie. So like if something crazy happens, like if an alien showed up that was like a green alien with a hat on, they would say, man, that's like, okay, so we're just talking to green aliens with hats on now, are we? Like that's ironic detachment. It's you're afraid that your content won't be something that the audience will accept. So in order to make them accept it, you have the characters hang a lantern on it. And that makes the audience go, oh, at least the characters feel the same way I do. And throughout this entire movie, crazy things are presented, but with ultimate sincerity, and all of the characters accept everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Was there anything like specific that you can think of about like strange or odd things that are being presented to the characters that they just accept?
Yeah, I mean, there was one moment, it's funny because there was one moment that like we were both sobbing. And then you looked later and there were reviews of this particular moment that said like it was cheesy or that it was
groan-worthy. Yeah,
groan-worthy. You said you pandering was a word that came up. And I didn't understand that at all unless you think of it, I'm going to say what it was in a second, but like unless you think of it as like someone truly believes that like the person who made this movie isn't actually responding to it in an emotional way, and they're just saying, well, I bet I know what people are going to react to, but it didn't strike me like that at all. And now I'll finally say what it was. It was Mrs. Who's like final line in the movie. I think it was her final quote.
Her last quote, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, the way Mrs. Who quotes people in this movie is a little bit different from the way they like set up quotes in the book. She'll like say the quote, and then she says the last name of the person, and then she says their nationality, which I didn't quite get for a while until they got to this moment. And she says a line, from Hamilton, and we both looked at each other. The line is, she's talking about literally like people with the power to save the world. And the line that she chooses is,
me? You want me to start the Tessa?
Tomorrow, there'll be more of us. Miranda, American.
And we were both losing our shit. We were crying. Like, we were like fully like end of Hamilton level crying. And for someone to write a review that says that moment that I had such an intense emotional reaction to was pandering,
groan worthy,
or like what they're saying is it was cheesy. Like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that person. And I feel like I'm much closer to understanding the person that made that movie and chose to put that quote there than the person who thinks that it was pandering. Because if it was pandering, like, sign me up. Like, clearly it worked. But I don't get that impression that it was put in there cynically.
Well, I mean, you've got a movie that really hinges on how emotional it is, referencing another thing that hinges on how emotional it is. And you've got a person who didn't really get either, who didn't respond emotionally to either. Of course, they're not going to understand one of them referencing the other.
Right.
They're just not going to get it.
Right.
And it's a bummer.
It's a bummer.
That line destroyed me.
Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. I like it. I'm with
you. I have died.
I'm on board. I would like to subscribe to your newsletter.
Yes.
This is great. I fully support this, and I'd like more.
Yes.
Oh, wait, no, the movie's over? Oh, darn.
So that's the end of the movie. Do you want to do our quadrants?
Let's do it. Let's sum everything up.
Great.
I think everyone knows how we feel about these. So let's talk about 2003.
Okay.
Do you feel that they cared about the source material?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
I think for them to make such a long and faithful adaptation, I think they did care.
It was probably like someone's favorite childhood book. All right, fine. They did care.
I think they did. I think it was unsuccessful.
It was.
I think it was entirely unsuccessful.
It was not good.
And again, not as a result of budget.
No.
I think wonderful things can be done on a small budget.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was not one of them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about 2018.
Yeah.
Do you think they cared?
Deeply.
But not in a reverential way.
No. They cared about the story.
Mm-hmm.
They cared about what the story was trying to say.
And they turned it into something which I think we both think is better than the original.
Yes.
And ultimately successful.
Yes.
Despite
Agreed.
its faults.
Sure.
Yeah, I can make a list of things that it could have done better, but this is one of those movies where I feel petty talking about the things that it got wrong.
Yeah. Because
the things it got right were so profoundly right.
Yes.
For me as a viewer.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about those things.
Yeah.
This is not, if someone wants me to say, if someone deals in absolutes and they say, so you're saying it was a perfect movie? I'm like, no, I'm not saying it was a perfect movie. I'm saying it was wonderful and I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Despite its imperfections.
Totally.
That's all I've got to say about it.
Hey, babe.
Uh-huh.
I love you.
Yeah, I know. And you know that I love you.
I do.
Yeah.
Let's end the episode.
All right. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the hashtag AdaptCast. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. So if you'd like to support the show, as we've said before, there are two great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. If there's anyone that you know who would enjoy a podcast where we can talk for quite a bit of time, I'm seeing, about things that they love, let them know about it. We think they'll like it too. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice is a very, very easy way to support us, and we would greatly appreciate it. All right, everybody, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.